All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are jumping right into a really interesting topic for anyone curious about precious metals, the silver ETF investment strategy. We're going to unpack why people love silver, the, let's say, real-world problems with actually owning it, and how a modern financial tool might just be the perfect solution. Ralph Waldo Emerson was talking about gold here, but this idea, it's true for all precious metals. For centuries, people have been drawn to assets like silver, not just because they're shiny, but for what they represent, right? A real tangible store of value, a shield against all kinds of uncertainty, and just that feeling of financial security. And this is where the dream kind of bumps up against reality. The idea of owning silver, it's powerful. You think you're getting the pure value of the metal, this great protection for your portfolio, something real you can actually hold. But what do you really get? Well, you get heavy bars you have to store somewhere, security fees, constant worries, and then trying to sell it quickly? Yeah, good luck with that. Okay, so let's get into it. First up, what is it about silver that makes it so appealing to investors year after year, decade after decade? Why does it continue to shine?
Well, it really comes down to three big ideas. First, it's famous as a hedge against inflation. The thinking is, when your dollars are worth less, hard assets like silver tend to hold their value. Second, and this is super interesting, unlike gold, silver is a huge industrial metal. Its demand is actually growing because we need it for everything from solar panels to electric cars to 5G tech. It has this real-world utility that supports its value. And of course, it has literally thousands of years of history as money. It's a classic store of value.
But, and it's a big but, like we hinted out before, wanting to own silver and actually owning physical silver are two totally different things. And this brings us to what we call the physical bullion problem, the heavy truth. So, what are these practical problems? The stuff that investors don't really think about until they're stuck with a bunch of heavy metal in their basement. Let's unpack the hidden headaches. Just think about it for a second. First, you have to pay for secure storage, like a professional vault, which isn't cheap. Then you need to get it insured against theft. And when you decide to sell it, the buyer's going to want to verify its purity, its authenticity. That's a whole process. But the biggest one, it's just not liquid. You can't just click a button and sell it instantly at a fair market price. It takes time and effort. So yeah, all of these challenges, the costs, the inconvenience, the lack of speed, it just screamed out for a simpler, more modern solution for the average person who just wants to invest in silver. And this is that modern answer, the Silver Exchange Traded Fund, or ETF. It's a tool that was literally designed to give you the benefits of owning silver without all the physical burdens. So what exactly is an ETF? Well, the easiest way to think about it is like this. It's a giant fund, and its only job is to go out, buy massive amounts of real physical silver, and lock it up in super secure vaults. Then, the fund issues shares, and those shares basically represent ownership of all that silver. The way it works is actually pretty straightforward. A big financial company buys the silver, they issue shares on the stock market, and you can buy and sell those shares through your regular brokerage account, just like you would with a stock like Apple or Microsoft. You get exposure to the price of silver with the click of a button. Simple as that. But hold on, just because it's easy doesn't mean you should just dive in headfirst without a plan. We need to talk about how to actually build a strategy around this thing, because believe me, it's more than just clicking buy. And look, any good strategy really starts with asking yourself one simple question. What kind of silver investor am I? Your goals, how long you plan to invest, how much risk you're comfortable with, that all determines how you should use a silver ETF. So for some people, silver is a long-term strategic play. These are the investors who might buy into an ETF and just sit on it for 5, 10, maybe even more years. They see it as a kind of insurance policy for their portfolio against long-term economic weirdness, inflation, you name it. Then you have another camp, the portfolio diversifier. For these investors, it's all about balance. A really common strategy here is to put a small slice of your portfolio, say around 5%, into something like silver. The goal is to own an asset that zigs when the stock market zags, smoothing out your overall returns over time. Okay, so it's super convenient. We've established that. But as with pretty much anything in life, convenience usually has a price, right? It comes with trade-offs. And that brings us to the final crucial piece of the puzzle, understanding the risks. This table lays it all out perfectly. Check it out. With an ETF, selling is easy, Storage is handled for you. Instead of paying for a vault and insurance, you just pay a small annual fee called an expense ratio. But look at that last line, counterparty risk. With physical silver that you hold in your hand, that risk is basically zero. With an ETF, it exists. It's a fancy term that just means you are trusting that the fund manager is actually doing their job and holding all the silver they say they are. So let's be crystal clear about this. While ETFs are incredibly easy, you're introducing new factors. You have to pay that management fee every single year. Sometimes the fund's share price might drift a tiny bit away from the actual price of silver. That's called a tracking error. And most importantly, you're trusting a third party. This gets to the absolute core of the paper versus physical debate in the metals world. Are you really owning silver, or are you just owning a promise of silver? And that leaves us with the one big question you've got to ask yourself. Is all that convenience, the simplicity, the liquidity, the ease of it all, is it worth the trade-offs of fees and trusting someone else to hold your asset? Honestly, there's no single right answer. It all depends on your own personal investment philosophy and what you're really trying to accomplish by owning a piece of one of the world's oldest forms of money.